man, so some of you are not gonna like this. Your stuff does not matter. Your stuff does not matter, and I'm about to prove it to you. Give me 1 minute and I'm gonna prove it to you with one question. With one question. And I get this question a lot. You know, I have a lot of things and like how much to pack and all this kind of stuff. And this hopefully puts so much perspective on things. So some of you guys are young, younger than me. You're in your 20s, early 30s. Some of you in your 40s, 50s, 60s. And honestly, the older you are, the more you'll understand it. So I want you to think about this. You collect all this stuff throughout your whole life. So you've got new cars, clothes, we change up everything all the time. And I want you to imagine that you are now 96 years old and you have everything you've wanted. You have everything that you want. The house, the cars, clothes, shoes, jewelry, everything that you wanted. So stuff matters, right? So here's the question. You're 95 years old with all the stuff you've collected your entire life. And now I come to you with a gift, but it's gonna cost you. So it's gonna cost you all your stuff, but here's the gift you're gonna get in return. You're gonna get to go back to be 18 years old again. But understand, the price to pay, you're 95, the price to be 18 years old again is to give up all your stuff. Do you say yes, or do you keep your stuff and stay 95? Isn't that interesting? So for most of you, you would give up everything you've accumulated from the age you are now up until 95. You would give it all up to go back to 18 with nothing. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So the follow-up question is, well, what does your stuff matter then? You would trade all of your stuff to be back younger again, to have more time. Because you could do more with more time. One of the biggest things that I hear when I talk to people is it always comes to stuff. And stuff sounds pretty, they don't call it stuff. People don't call it stuff. Most people call it bills. Like, it's called bills. That's why you can't go to these places you want to go. But if you didn't have bills, you'd have more money. And if money is the thing, because everyone makes that the thing, like they don't have enough money to do it, but you have money to go out to eat, you have money to pay. I saw some TikToks the other day of people paying $100 for one bag of groceries. Like, do you know what that can get you in other countries? Are you even aware of it? Are you even aware of it? Some people, I don't know how to spend. I'm only making like $7,000 a month in the States and I'm barely surviving. Like, have you thought there's other places? And it's funny because I talked about this, I think when I was living in Perpignan, France, because I read a book, I can't remember the name of it. Maybe it was like The Fifth Mountain or The Supreme Gift. It was one of these books by Paulo Coelho. But it talked about how our stuff that we have, our stuff is our anchor. Like, the stuff that you have is your anchor. You know, I think it was Tina who left me a comment the other day. It says, Luke, I was following you. I remember you back in Bali when you lived in the Creation Station. So I want you to, if you guys follow me back in Bali, I made a video titled Welcome to the Creation Station. At that point in time, I can't remember what villa it was in. I think it was the villa that I had that had the huge open living room, and I had like coconut trees inside, and I had a huge pool with a fountain at the end and a huge kitchen that was right there, from what I remember. And our staff she had her own room, and we had rooms that we didn't even open and go in. And I was there and I was like, it was nice. Like it was something new. And I always wanted to have, my dream when I went to Bali was I wanted to have I saw Sorella Amor. I used to follow her pretty heavily back in the day. And she had I've said this before, she had she was in a villa, staying in a house, and she had a pile of coconuts outside. And every morning she would wake up, go outside, cut a coconut, drink the water, and that's how the day started. And that was my dream. And it turned out that I did it multiple times in multiple different places all over the island. And the one thing I realized was when we lived in these huge villas, these big villas, and paying all this money to stay here, there were moments where, like, subconsciously, I didn't want to go away for 4 or 5 days. I didn't want to go away for 2 weeks. Because I'm like, no matter where we go, with the prices like they are, we won't be able to spend the money we would lose by just going. Like we're not going to spend, we can't spend more than what we're going to be paying here. I don't remember how much it was there, but I know it was a lot more than staying in other small homes where most people were staying. And I remember thinking, like, if we go there, we're losing double the money in a sense. So we go and we have a 500, 1,000, or however much, I don't know how much we spend, but we're paying for this place here that's really nice and we're paying a lot for, relative to the homes that were around there. And I found that very interesting because that Paulo Coelho book said that the stuff that we have, as we go about life, they become our anchors. And so many people are just lugging so many anchors. Like it blows my mind, people who have a car payment of like more than $300 a month. Like if you guys don't know, I don't know if I've released, I filmed a series. I don't think it was ever released though yet. So probably in the future it'll be out. But I went back to the States almost a year ago, actually a year to the date. And I was there and I wanted to spend time with my family. And I was like, well, I got all this time, I'm doing a bunch of things that I'm working on, but I was like, why don't I get a job as well? As in my adult life, I've never worked like a 9-to-5 job that I had to go into a place. And I got a job working at Amazon warehouse. And I remember like going in there and I was surrounded by all these people and we're all making the same amount of money because I was a stower. Anyone who's ever worked at Amazon, I was a stower. So I was someone, they bring me a big pallet of boxes. I open the boxes, scan it, and the robot comes over and I put it in the shelf and it goes. And we just repeat that for 12 and a half hours, 3 days a week, 36 hours a week. It was actually pretty cool. Like got left alone. I got through a lot of books. I listened to a lot of podcasts. I wrote out so many notes there. Got a lot done, actually, to be honest, and got paid for the time. And the one thing I realized is I was parking the car, and at that time, I don't know what car. I used someone. I know so many. I got people, so I had different cars that I would take into work every day because I don't have a car. And the one thing I realized when I was pulling up is all these people, because when you work in a certain area, you're just in a machine row. So all of us are there. There's like 40 of us all doing the exact same thing, all making basically the same amount of money. And I remember looking at all of my coworkers' cars. And I remember just thinking, like, how are these people affording these cars? And what I've realized now is don't tell me the car you have, don't tell me the motorcycle you have, tell me where you go. And I was like, the one guy next to me had a Dodge Charger, and that was his reason for working there, because it was like a $46,000 car, and he says he still has to pay it every month. Those are anchors. If you have a desire to be somewhere other than you are, it's an anchor. So for me, when people are paying that much, I'm like, why don't you really want to be traveling and living in another country? But you have stuff, AKA bills. At least if you own it, you can just leave it, walk away from it. I can't tell you how many things I've walked away from. Living all over the world. I literally, in all the countries that I've lived in, I have stuff there that just stayed with friends, and I'm like, use whatever you want. Like, if I can make it back there and you still have it, like, I hope I get it back. I think about my Xbox now. I have like an Xbox in Australia, my bike's in Australia, so my electronics, extra iPhone, a bunch of stuff. And I look at it there and I'm just like, goodness, stuff. Cost me a lot of money a few months ago when I had to go back to Europe, had to go into France. get all my stuff that was in the north of France and bring it back to the south of France because it's easier accessible. I can easily just fly into Barcelona and I'm there. My stuff is 30 minutes away, an hour away. But I was like, stuff. You know, gotta think about the end goal. If in the end when our stuff doesn't even really matter, it will in the second. You know, my brother-in-law said it the best that I've actually ever heard. We were in Barcelona and we were looking at a Lamborghini. And it was on display at the mall and we were just looking at it. And he was just like, yeah, you know, why pay $250,000 for that when you really just want to ride it for a few days? And if you have the money for it, why not just rent it for 5 days? Get the thrill out and then see if you want it. Because most of the time you're like, maybe. Or maybe go and do what you really want to do. Go and explore. And I say all this because it's like stuff. Like when I talk to people, like it's always come down to two things. And it's so funny because kids never come up as one of the reasons that they can't travel. And that's a shame to put it on to your kids because the kids follow you. You make the rules normally of where the kids go. So if you were on the move, then it's not the kids' fault that you're not going. It's maybe yours because you don't book an online tutor or find a school or find a class for them to do it or do it in summer. Just in my humble opinion. But that's not really an excuse. I've only heard it a few times. Everyone says either their things or their pets. And if it's stopping you from doing what you truly want to do, like, can you imagine, listen, hear me out. Can you imagine, okay, how great it would feel to be in a place that you truly enjoy and you don't have to worry about money is not an issue. How you're going to pay the next bill isn't an issue, especially if you're watching this in the United States of America, because like minimum wage there is like a day's pay in a lot of countries. Like 1 hour is like a day's pay in some countries. And in a lot of countries, probably more than a third of the countries, at least 10 countries that I've been to and shown the vlog in, what you make in 1 day is what people make in 1 month in other countries. Like, think about that. I can't remember where I was going with that. But just to think of like what is possible, like literally what is possible. Like if you could just have money, not if it wasn't an issue, because you guys, I didn't show everywhere. So when I lived, almost everywhere I lived at in Bali, and I use Bali as an example because it was a really big turning point where I shared a lot. And that was the most time I'd ever spent in one country in a row. I don't think since I've been 21 years old living in the States that I spent more than 10 months in any country in a row without leaving for months at a time to travel or change countries entirely. And one of the things that I realized, one of the things I didn't show because I needed to have privacy because in the island, everyone recognizes everyone. So I was like, let me just not show my house. I mean, not my office, but I rented an office. And the person I was with at the time, you know, bless their heart, they're a great person, but they wanted the luxury and the big villas and all this stuff for videos and for the brand. And I get it. I totally get it. It helped. It was nice to film there as well. But for me, it felt better when I was in my little office. Like I rented like a little office apart from our villa and our house. And the villa I don't remember what it was, maybe $1,500 a month, almost $2,000 a month in some of the places. But my little office was like $80 a month. And I remember like sitting in my office on like business calls, like, cause I'll probably start doing it again soon. But I did calls. I did like clarity calls, consulting calls with people, trying to help people get this straight and get clear what they want. And then let's build a plan to make it happen quicker than you thought. And those calls that I did at the time, I started out with them only being they were $111 for an hour call. That's where it started. And I would do these calls all the time. People would just schedule them. In some of my older videos, if you look, there's links where you can schedule and pay. And I actually think now it's lower because I just do 30 minutes. I think it's like $47 or something. Because that was to help people to travel. But I would do one call and that pays the rent for the entire month. And to do like 4 calls a day, like it was a good feeling. And I don't say that to brag. I say it to be like some of you make that in a few hours of working. So less than 1 day's work pays for a month where you stay. So in 2 weeks of working, you can pay your entire rent for a year. Imagine if you paid your entire rent for a year with just 1 week of work. How much stress would you have off of you? Like, so many people are so comfortable with just being stressed out, it just becomes a normal thing. And it's just normal, but that's your normal. Like, what if you could feel better than that? Like, not have those little things. I don't even think some of you know, like, what your brain would come up with, the ideas that you come up with, the people that you could help, the impact you'd have if you were in a place where you weren't in such stress. But the thing to realize, I have actually a meeting soon. The thing to realize is that if you're in the stress, it's gonna hurt some people. It's self-inflicted. 94% of the time, it's self-inflicted. No, Luke, but you don't get it, my partner. Who chose them? Who chose to stay with them? No, but my bills are high. Who's deciding to live there? Who's deciding to stay with the people who are living there? Like, you have more power than you don't. Don't give it away. We give our power away so many times to just an excuse or a blame. Yeah, you give your power away, you make yourself weak, and to people who actually have power, it makes you sound even weaker than you're making yourself sound. So this, yes, is calling you out, but at the same time, I hope that this just wakes you up. Sometimes we just need to be shaken and awakened. That's it. You know, I love what a guy a great guy, Alex Hormozy. If you don't know him, you should YouTube him. He has great videos. But the one thing he says is, like, we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. So we just need to be reminded. Like, you just need to be reminded. At 95, you would trade everything in to be 18 again. So something you spend your whole life accumulating and sacrifice. To say, I have those things you have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice time. You have to sacrifice your energy, which I get. But if it's not the life you wanted, it's maybe time to think again. Warren Buffett, I don't know how old he is, 90. How old is Warren Buffett?
Warren Buffett is 92 years old.
Warren Buffett is 92 years old. How much is Warren Buffett worth?
According to Forbes.com, Warren Buffett's net worth is $119.6 billion.
Warren Buffett's worth $119 billion. He's 92 years old. How much of that money do you think he would trade to be 18 again with nothing? How much do you think you would trade in at the end in 30, 40, 50 years to be the age that you are right now? The age you are right now. Because there's so much possibility. So much. And I firmly believe, and I spent a lot of time on this, I've helped other people go through this, and I still am trying to figure it out for myself, and the answer keeps on changing. And there's this thought that I have that when I'm an old man, older than I am now, and I'm maybe rocking back and forth, I'm not as mobile anymore, like, what are the questions that are going to be going through my mind? Because when you're older, you're going to have questions that are going to go through your mind. And those questions matter. They matter more than you think. Because I still think of things, I still have thoughts of what I could have done better in the past, even now. Like you guys know, I just had a birthday. So I really was reflecting on it. So I just had a birthday, and I tell this to a lot of people. It's like the other day, I was 22 years old. Like, I was 22 years old. 22 years old. And then I had a birthday, and all of a sudden, I'm 37. And I think to myself, where did the time go? I'm like, how did that much time pass? How did those 15 years pass like this? How did that happen? What was I doing? And I think of what are the questions that I ask? And one of the main questions that come up is, did I do the most with what I had, with what I knew at the time? And a lot of those times, the answer is yes, and it brings a peace that rushes over my body. I think anyone who was a pro athlete at any time, even semi-pro, then you'll understand what this is like. There were times I played on a team where we didn't get paid. One of the reasons why I left the south of France, a lot of people asked me back who were following me at that time and leaving comments during those videos, even still people watch those. It was like, why'd you leave there if you loved it so much? The team ran out of money. There was a 3-month stretch, okay, that they didn't have any money. They had no money. I got paid like January. I think we didn't get paid in November. Then we didn't get paid in December. Then we were told that a sum was going to come in January, and they gave all that money to us. But it still didn't cover the back pay that they owed us. It just was the most that they could give each player. And I remember when they gave it to us, I was like, man, this is going to be tough. Because it was only a part, it wasn't even a month's salary, and they owed us for almost a month and a half. And I remember getting that money, and I remember just thinking like, wow, so this is going to change a lot. And at that time I was making YouTube videos. And the one thing that I did is I was like, okay, I'm going to use this money and I'm just going to go all in on YouTube. Like maybe there's some kind of hope there that can bring me fulfillment inside, because my wallet is definitely empty. And I used that money to get a MacBook and a lens for my camera, and I just went all out. And I remember thinking like, well, we're not getting paid. I don't know when we're getting paid again. I got this little extra money now that I can use on the weekends to go somewhere to film, which is those videos you saw in Collioure and Barcelona, Girona, all those videos. Those were filmed with the last bits of gas money. It would take me 3 hours to get to Barcelona because I take the slow route, because you don't have to pay on the slow route. Where the auto route gets me there in an hour, but you got to pay. I had to pay 30 euros for that route, which is now free. Crazy. But I always went every weekend, every day, every moment that I had free, I went to go film. And I look back at that as like, did I do the most with what I had? And yes. I think if I would have waited in my life till I had security with money, which I still don't have, but I've at least tasted it like really well from time to time. I'm still working on figuring that part out. But if I would have waited until I had it all set, the lump sum, now I'm gonna go, who knows how old I'd be? Who knows how much time I would have wasted in the energy of maybe not being the most that I could be at that time. If my heart's pulling me here, but I'm like, well, heart, you're gonna have to wait. We're gonna have to do this for 10, 15, 20 years. But who knows what happens in that time period? People say they're gonna wait till they retire. Like you retire at 65, 67, 68. Life expectancy is 76, 77, 78 years old. So you're gonna work for 40 years to have the last 11? And God forbid if you're someone who sits at a desk for 40 years, 8, 9, 10 hours a day for 5 or 6 days a week. How mobile are you going to be to just jump and do this stuff like this? Yes, some of you will be. Some of you won't. Who knows what's going to happen? I remember when I was in Australia and I was getting paid, and I was just like, let me just save money cash. And I remember I had this money cash. And I didn't do everything I wanted to the way I wanted to, but I still did it because I wanted to save up all this cash. And I had this envelope, and at the time it was like a lot of crazy amount of money. And still is a good amount of money, but it was just like, at that time it was like, I can do a lot. Still could do a lot actually, but my perspectives changed. But it was like, I think I had like 1,500 or 2,000 in an envelope, $2,000. It's like, let me put this here, save this for another travel time. I'll pass up on the one now. Next thing you know, I'm in the States. I go home and I'm driving my car So I leave my car there every year and it's just sitting there. Some of my family use it or people use it. And it was my responsibility to make sure everything's paid on it. And I'm thinking that it is. And I go riding around and someone cuts me off. I'm trying to make a left turn and some guy cuts through all the lane, turns in front of me, boom, hit him, T-bone him. Find out that I don't have insurance on my car. I have insurance, but it wasn't paid that month. And I was liable to pay that. And I remember the time I thought my life was over because it was like $7,000 that I had to pay, you know? And it was a really scary thing because that whole envelope of cash I had, gone just like that. Gone, completely gone. And actually I have to go right now. Completely gone. And I realized like, I need to capitalize on every moment. Not that I shouldn't save it, but I need to capitalize on every moment, not put it off until another time because you never know what can happen. I could have been hurt. Someone else could have been hurt. Because you got to think sometimes, someone who you care about can be hurt. And now that time that you have to go, some of you guys are like, I'm gonna wait to travel till I'm later. What happens when your parents are 94 when you finally retire and they need special care around the clock? My grandma right now, she's 89. Oh, I thought I missed her birthday. Her birthday's in a month. Exactly, September 16th. And it's like we gotta be there. Someone has to be there. So we can't just leave for 2 weeks because someone has to be there. At the end, most of you, including myself, when we're old, at 95 years old, would trade all of our stuff to be the age we are right now. Not even 18. So if your stuff doesn't matter so much, what will matter to you at that age? What questions, when you look back, what are you going to say? I wish I did more. I wish I did less. I wish I did. And which of those things can you do now? Little food for thought. I love you. I got to go. Take care. And I'll speak to you guys all in the next episode or next video. Probably, like I say, sooner than you think.